Daniel Reed never expected fatherhood to be easy, but nothing could have prepared him for what happened the night his son, Oliver, spoke his first word. Daniel had been a single father since Oliver was just a newborn. His wife, Claire, had passed away in childbirth, leaving him to navigate the struggles of parenting alone. Their small apartment was filled with warmth, laughter, and the occasional chaos that came with raising a toddler. Oliver was a quiet baby, observant, with deep blue eyes that often seemed to stare beyond the world of the living. He rarely cried, rarely fussed, and while other children his age had begun babbling, Oliver remained silent. The doctors reassured Daniel that some children simply took longer to speak. Still, there was always something in the back of his mind, an unease he couldn't shake. Then, on Oliver's second birthday, it happened. Daniel had just put his son in the crib when Oliver reached up, placed his tiny hand on his father's cheek, and whispered a word. A single, eerie, ancient word. Velorith. The room shuddered. A gust of icy wind howled through the apartment, rattling the windows. The air grew thick with a strange, golden mist. Daniel's skin burned with an invisible force, his bones feeling like they were stretching, twisting. He collapsed to the floor, gasping for breath. From the crib, Oliver let out a soft giggle. By the time Daniel managed to stand up, everything had changed. His skin shimmered with an unnatural glow. His fingers were longer, more delicate, almost ethereal. A sharp pain spread through his back, and when he turned towards the mirror, he saw them. Wings. At first, Daniel thought he was hallucinating. But as he stared into the mirror, he saw his reflection shift further. His hair had turned a shade of silver blue, his ears elongated to a fine point. His once human features were now something else, something out of a fairy tale. He turned to Oliver, heart pounding. The toddler's chubby hands glowed with the same strange light. He was still a baby, still small and fragile, but his eyes, they weren't human anymore. They gleamed like polished moonstone. A deep, whispering voice filled the room, not spoken aloud but echoing inside Daniel's head. The child of fate has spoken the lost name. You are no longer bound to mortal time. The hunger will call you soon. Daniel staggered back, clutching his chest. The hunger. What did that mean? Over the next few days, their transformations only became more apparent. His body no longer required sleep, his movements had become impossibly fast, and when he stepped outside, he could hear things, whispers in the wind, voices in the trees. The world was alive in a way he had never noticed before. But the worst part was the hunger. It started as a dull ache, but by the third day, it became unbearable. A gnawing, clawing emptiness deep in his core. He tried eating normal food, but it tasted like ash. Water did nothing. His body craved something else, something unnatural. Then, one night, as he rocked Oliver to sleep, he felt an intense pull in his chest. His vision blurred, his senses sharpened. His gaze fell upon Oliver's mouth, where his tiny baby teeth were beginning to shift ever so slightly. And that was when he understood. Teeth. He needed teeth to survive. Daniel refused to believe it at first. But as the days passed, his hunger became unbearable. His hands trembled, his wings twitched uncontrollably, and his thoughts became fogged with one singular desire. He had to find a tooth. Desperate, he searched for answers. He scoured old folklore books, visited libraries, even tracked down an elderly woman rumored to be a witch. And the truth he uncovered was far more terrifying than he had imagined. Long ago, fairies had not been the kind, whimsical creatures of bedtime stories. They had been something far darker, predators of the night who survived on the essence of human youth. Baby teeth, untouched by time, carried a magic that kept fairies immortal. It was a long-lost secret buried under layers of rewritten history. And now, thanks to Oliver's cursed first word, Daniel and his son had become part of that ancient nightmare. But there was one more terrifying revelation. The hunger would grow stronger. If he didn't feed soon, the curse would take full control. His mind, his will, everything that made him human, would slip away. And then, he wouldn't just crave teeth. He would hunt for them. Daniel's hands shook as he stood over Oliver's crib, watching his son sleep. The boy's first baby tooth was loose. The hunger inside him screamed. Every fiber of his being urged him to take it. Just one tooth. Just a single taste. But Daniel refused. He couldn't steal from his own son. Instead, he did something he never imagined he'd do. That night, under the cloak of darkness, Daniel used his newfound speed to sneak into a nearby neighborhood. He found a house, peered through the window. A child lay sleeping, a tiny tooth tucked under the pillow. He hesitated. Was this who he had become? A monster that stole from innocent children? But as his body convulsed with hunger, he had no choice. He reached beneath the pillow, took the tiny tooth, and the moment it touched his fingers, he felt it. A surge of life, a rush of energy so intoxicating that he nearly collapsed. The hunger vanished. His body no longer ached. He was whole again, but just as relief washed over him, a shadow moved in the trees outside. Someone was watching him, and then, from the darkness, a chilling whisper filled the air. You are not the only one, cursed one. And we do not share our prey. Daniel realized then that he and Oliver were not alone. Others like them existed, other cursed fairies who had lived for centuries, feeding, surviving in the shadows. But they weren't just feeding. They were hunting. And now that Daniel had taken his first tooth, he had become their enemy. The next nights were filled with fear. Shadows moved outside their apartment. Strange figures lurked in alleyways. A message, written in what looked like silver dust, appeared on his doorstep. Join us, or be hunted. Daniel knew he had only one choice. He had to protect Oliver. But how could he escape a fate he had already succumbed to? How could he fight against creatures just like him? There was only one answer. He would have to change the rules of the curse. And that meant finding out exactly why Oliver had spoken that word in the first place. Somewhere out there, someone had been waiting for this to happen. Someone had wanted this curse to be reborn. And Daniel was going to find them before it was too late.